Hey, you. Oh, thanks for showing up. I needed a break from canon law for just a second. Some pretty good Zoom meetings today, though. I tell you what, you know what the best mug ever for Zoom meetings is? Check this out. Huh? It's effective, no? I wanted to take it through a thought experiment. Okay, just bear with me for a second. Grab a piece of paper, please. Okay, grab it. Grab a piece of paper. Okay. What are you? I'm looking for, like, we're going to boil this down. We're just going to, what are you? List it out. Whatever. Okay? Yeah, that's, ooh. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, that's probably true. Is that all? Yeah. Okay, I like it. Okay, so, let me guess. Your list is either a job, a noun of some kind, but I'm going to assume a job, a role that you are in a family dynamic or with someone else, or a role that you play, or the way that you produce, how you provide, your relationship with your children or your siblings, parents. Okay, does that look right when you look down? Did anybody, if we cut through all of that stuff, because I mean, that's not really what you are, you're not just any of those things, right? Did we cutting it down a little further? Could we say, like, an organism, an animal, a specific, like, human? Is that we can go with that? Okay. So what am I? I am a human. Okay. So that's final answer. 10% correct. Congratulations. You're actually more community. You are a microbiome, primarily in your gut, but also in your skin. You're 90%. If you were just going to say, I am human cellular matter, you would be 10% correct, and you'd be 8 years old, if that's all you are. So what are you? Oh, you might say, well, I'm a perspective that's able to live. I'm a human that's an ego, right? I mean, isn't that what we define as, like, the me, it's our objectification of the subjective me, I suppose, but it's internal. So it's like I identify as XYZ that encompasses all of those other things that you just listed, the roles that you play and how you provide and all that. Is that so? Ego. Okay, so we're not human. We're actually 90% community. So we must be an ego. Well, you read Douglas Hofstadter, and he kind of just craps all that over that theory. He makes it really clear, and research-wise, you read it and you're just impacted by the way that he explains it all. It's a self-referential loop. So from the moment womb to tomb, you come wailing into this world. There's an influx of sensation through the senses. Now, you've had 9 months of internally trying to figure out, like, what you are, but there's no way to differentiate you from womb necessarily. Even in your own consciousness, you are just, you are an extension of your mother, having your own subjective experience from the very beginning as you develop. You get blown into this world, come wailing, and I don't know, maybe not blown, I suppose. I mean, with a head like this, I actually had to get pulled in with forceps. Yeah, doctor, I grabbed a little wrong. I came into this world with a black eye. That's fact. I mean, come on, you gotta fit this thing. So, not blown into this world, alright, but we come into this world wailing. And immediately there's bright lights, and there's probably not a very hospitable feeling for an alien environment. That's, I mean, I'm going to knock you out and just throw you up on Mars with some Martian colony and not tell you that this is going to happen. It's just going to be that sudden, and that might be kind of the traumatic experience of birth, I suppose, you know? But it's all you can do is just go, ah, and like this input becomes a self-referential loop. It's, so like, you go into I used to do this all the time at church. There was a bathroom. One of the bathrooms had a mirror, and then a mirror behind it, right? And so if I stood in the middle of the two mirrors, I'd see an endless hallway. I'm sure anybody's done this. I like to hope that I'm not the only one that is just fascinated by that. You can just stare there for hours like, oh my God, like it doesn't end. It doesn't end. You know, because that's how I'm studying canon law now, so I'm okay, but that's how I spent a lot of my church services when I was younger anyway. So yeah, that eternal hallway of mirror, Douglas Hofstadter is like, that's you. That's what happens to that ego. The formation of that perspective is your ego. That's completely moldable and completely really your choice, because it's constructed by you from the beginning as a way of referencing, like, what in the world am I? This perspective that's just being inundated with sensation. And that inundation is just non-stop all the time, and you just get used to it and then form definitions by which you can manipulate it or control it or comprehend it, and then eventually you mature into an organism that can truly comprehend it. But that doesn't mean that the ego necessarily exists as some objective entity. It's a subjective, experiential thing that is happening within 90% biologically community that is somehow giving rise to this unified perspective. So if I ask what you are, I'm probably going to be able to blow most of that out of the water, because it doesn't matter. What matters is who you are. Now that is a miracle. You are a walking miracle, for starters, because somehow this 90% microbiome community of organism that seems singular is having a unified experience out of that singularity that you can't help but assume is real. And so you construct and modify this ego so that you can always say I, and have some way to know what you're talking about when you're talking to other people. The funny thing is, that's also the source of all of our sickness as humankind. I mean, emotional, internal pain and suffering and butthurtery and douchemonkery. Those are official terms. If I don't have an ego, I have to be satisfied, or even better, have to recognize the glory of the fact that I have the ability to have an experience, that I can take a breath. Full stop. Appreciate that truly for a moment. Try to just, like, you are able to have this experience. All of your senses are able to draw in all of this feeling of clothing and air and light and sound and color and decorations and little animals and iconography. I mean, when you really allow yourself to take that in truly to your core, let it hit you, I wouldn't be surprised if you fall on your knees. I know I've done it a couple of times. Just overwhelmed with the beauty of it. Just the precious miracle. There will never, ever be another organism that will have this experience from your framework, your subjective interpretation. Ever. And we live in a world that somehow treats the objective human as if that's what you are. Not worrying about who you are. Because it's easier to build an economy and sell shit to you if you have an ego, and therefore you are butthurt, and therefore you need to buy happiness, and therefore you need to fill it somehow, because the ego never is satisfied. Ever. It can't be. It always needs more input just to keep that swirl going, I suppose. But if you crucify your ego, if you just rationally recognize you are walking community, that there's nothing that you can have done or accomplished in your life without relationship, that without relationship, babies alone just die. They just wither up and die. We are relationship. So much more than we are self. Let's take that a bit further and recognize that every interaction I have with every human being I meet today that is focused on them instead of me is going to be more memorable for them. It's going to enliven them. It's going to increase the vitality of my little community area. And that's all well and good, but the crazy thing is it will make me happier. Because I'm no longer focused on me. I'm no longer worried about why I'm butthurt or why I, need this and need that in order to actually finally be happy or finally make it or whatever. I can just sit back and be appreciative, humble, awe-rendered gratitude for the ability to do the work of service. Even the sweat equity of that, or the smile that I get to put on somebody's face, or I had a lady 2 weeks ago call me up because a glitch had happened and an auto pay for a credit card hadn't gone through, and that was unusual. We just moved, so these things happen. She calls me up, right? And what should have been, what probably had been for her most of the time, in fact, no, I confirmed with her later, because I said to her, I hope that I've brightened your day, because I was treating her like a real person. I was trying to get her to laugh. I was saying, thank you honestly for calling me. I would have overlooked this, or blah, blah, blah. And I took it a step further. And I said, I'll bet your job sucks. She says, when I said, I hope it brightened your day, she said, you honestly, this has been one of the better ones. It's been a rough one. It's been a rough. I said, I'll bet I would hate your job. I mean, can you imagine if your entire livelihood was 40 hours a week of calling people that hated you immediately, simply because of what you represented, simply because you're an annoyance, simply because they don't want to face the responsibility that you're actually calling about, Think of how much of a percentage of pissed off people she has to just cope with every single day. Now think of how much she's going to remember some weirdo that was chatting with her about, I don't even remember how I got into like getting her to open up, chatting with her about her job, to the point where I could tell that even by the end of it, I thought that I'd already taken another 15 minutes of her time just chit-chatting while I was walking the dogs or whatever. I felt intrusive already, but I could tell even when hanging up, she was almost like, man, I really don't want to let this end, because she's going to have to hang up and then go back to shitty life and calling pissed off people, none of whom exist. That's not in the way that they think they are, not the way that you think you're not an objective thing. You're not an objective human. You are a person having an experience, and therefore you can change that experience or change the perception of that experience. Recognize that you don't deserve shit to begin with because you're already a miracle, breathing and experiencing. Stop right there, appreciate that for a fact, and then look around and say, okay, who can I help? If anything is a distraction, you'll tell yourself that, but then it becomes this its own self-perpetuating momentum. How many people can I make smile today? I want to find the most unlikely I want to find the most unlikely opportunity to have a genuine person to person, capital P to capital P, because this is miraculous, God-worthy, subjective you. How do I find the most unlikely person and brighten their day? How do I be of service truly? And I know that a lot of individuals who are Christians, and I'm willing to bet a lot of people in general, but I don't know other religions that I've read that really qualify it this way, but salvation is simply a belief in Jesus and an eventual reward for having been so good, for having done such righteousness, having endured such blasphemies from those who disagree with this flavor of Christianity, or this flavor of what I would say a shortcoming in some ways in which Christianity is taught. Does that make sense? The way that the early church really taught it, the way that Paul speaks of in Galatians 2:20 specifically,